This champagne, it began as a complete and utter accident. A flaw so dangerous its first producers called it le vin du diable, the devil's wine. Bottles would spontaneously and violently explode in cellars, creating chaos and costing fortunes. And the man whose name now graces some of the world's most expensive and coveted bottles, Dom Perignon, he didn't invent it. In fact, he spent most of his life trying to get rid of the bubbles. So how did this fizzy, dangerous mistake become a symbol so powerful, so iconic, that people will gladly, even eagerly, pay $300 for a bottle that costs about $50 to actually produce? Why do they spend thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, on a single night's worth of this golden liquid? Because they're not buying a drink, they're buying a weapon. The story of the world's most luxurious champagne has almost nothing to do with taste and everything to do with power. That astronomical price tag, that's the entire point. It's a tool, a symbol, and a password, all meticulously designed to draw a very clear, very bright line between the new elite and, well, everyone else. This isn't just a story about wine. It's a story about the architecture of status itself and how a fizzy drink that started as a total mistake became the ultimate, undeniable symbol of making it. Let's start with that intimidating price tag. When you see a bottle of Dom Perignon for $300, or a bottle of Krug for $500, or Jay-Z's Armand de Brignac for nearly $1,000, your mind naturally assumes you're paying for quality. And you are, but only to a point. Because while the basic ingredients themselves, grapes, are cheap, making true champagne is anything but. First, it can only come from one very specific, very small place on Earth, a 34,000-hectare region of France called Champagne. The climate here is uniquely harsh, barely warm enough for grapes to even ripen. This weather, from sudden, devastating frost to relentless rain, puts the grape crops at constant risk, making every single harvest a gamble. The soil itself is a thing of legend, a deep, chalky soil prized for giving the wine its signature minerality and brightness. Because of this tiny, protected patch of land, the price for the grapes is astronomical, often costing over €8 per kilogram. And since it takes about 1.2 kilograms of grapes just to make one bottle, you're already at $10 before you've even begun the winemaking process. Then there's the method. This is crucial. True champagne must be made using the méthode champenoise. It's a painstaking, incredibly laborious process where the wine's second fermentation, the one that creates all those magical bubbles, happens inside the very bottle you buy. That bottle then has to be aged by law for years, sleeping in a cold, dark cellar, developing the complex, toasty, brioche-like flavors that define great champagne. This long aging process, called tirage, ties up millions upon millions of dollars in inventory for years before a single bottle can ever be sold. It's a massive financial risk. Now, compare that to Prosecco. Most Prosecco uses what's called the tank method. The second fermentation happens in a giant sealed stainless steel tank. It's faster, it's far more efficient, and it's infinitely cheaper. It produces a perfectly pleasant, fruity, fun, sparkling wine in a fraction of the time. That's why you can find a great bottle of Prosecco for $15. It's made to be a drink. Champagne is made to be a statement. But even with the expensive land, the risky climate, and that laborious, time-consuming method, the real production cost for a standard bottle of non-vintage champagne still only lands somewhere around $40 or $50. That doesn't explain the enormous leap to $300, $500, or $1,000. That gigantic, dizzying chunk of the price, That's what you pay for the story. You're paying for the ghost of French kings. To understand how a simple drink can command that kind of insane premium, you have to travel back in time, way back, before the bubbles even existed. Before the 17th century, the wine from the Champagne region was a still, pinkish wine. Its prestige came entirely from its geography. Reims, a city right in the heart of Champagne, was the traditional, sacred place where French kings were crowned. For centuries, starting with Hugh Capet way back in 987, monarchs were anointed there, and the local wine was the star of the coronation banquets. From its very birth, this wine was tangled up with the highest echelons of royalty and power. The bubbles were a complete inconvenient accident. The region's cold climate would often stop the fermentation process in the fall, leaving dormant yeast cells in the barrels. When the warmth of spring arrived, the yeast would suddenly wake up and start fermenting again, releasing a byproduct, carbon dioxide. As winemakers began using stronger glass bottles from England, that trapped gas created immense pressure, so much pressure in fact that bottles would spontaneously explode in the cellars, sometimes setting off a chain reaction that could destroy a huge portion of a producer's stock. They called it le vin du diable, or the devil's wine. Even the famous monk Dom Perignon, who is so often and so wrongly credited with inventing champagne, actually spent most of his life on a crusade to get rid of the bubbles he saw as a flaw. But what the producers saw as a dangerous flaw, the elite saw as a thrill. After the long and austere reign of the Sun King, Louis XIV, the regent of France, Philippe II, Duke of Orléans, made the sparkling version the it drink at his lavish, decadent, and often scandalous Parisian parties. Suddenly, this fizzy, explosive, unpredictable wine was the absolute height of fashion for the French aristocracy. It was exciting, it was different, and most importantly, it was exclusive. The great champagne houses were born, marketing their product not just as a wine, but as a symbol of celebration, luxury, and status fit for the royal court at Versailles. Then, in 1789, the music stopped. The French Revolution swept across the country. Champagne's biggest customers, the aristocracy, were being imprisoned, or worse, sent to the guillotine. This should have been the end of Champagne. Its entire brand was built on an elite class that was literally being decapitated. But this is where Champagne proved it wasn't just a drink for the powerful, it was a drink that understood power. Instead of dying with the old regime, the champagne houses performed a brilliant pivot. They had already built vast export networks across Europe and America. During the bloody reign of terror, they simply went through their client records and shrewdly changed their titles from Count and Duke to Citizen. Then, as a new power rose from the ashes of the revolution, Champagne was right there to greet it. Napoleon Bonaparte, the new emperor, championed the wine, associating it with military victory and imperial glory. When his armies eventually fell, the producers immediately sold their wine to the occupying Russian officers, who took a powerful taste for it, all the way back to the Tsar's court. Champagne didn't just survive, it found new patrons again and again. It proved its loyalty wasn't to a class of people, but to power itself. That invisible history of resilience and association is an ingredient you're paying for in every single bottle. This brings us to the very heart of that $300 price tag. In 1899, a Norwegian-American economist named Thorstein Veblen published a groundbreaking book, The Theory of the Leisure Class. In it, he coined a term that perfectly, and I mean perfectly, explains luxury champagne: conspicuous consumption. Veblen argued that for a certain class of people, the primary point of buying things isn't to satisfy a need, but to display economic power. For these special items, which we now call Veblen goods, the fundamental laws of economics get flipped completely upside down. Usually, if a price goes up, demand goes down. It's common sense. But for a Veblen good, the high price is precisely what makes it desirable. The more expensive it is, the more people want it. Why? Because its function isn't practical. It's social. It's a signal, a performance. Buying a $300 bottle of champagne is a public announcement. It announces that you have so much disposable wealth that you can afford to literally, figuratively, burn it on something completely unnecessary. It's not about getting a better drink. It's about demonstrating that you have risen above the very question of value for money. The waste is the message. The insane price is the feature, not the bug. This is the weapon part. In the hands of the elite, champagne draws a stark line in the sand between who's in the club and who's not. Think about the rituals, the bottle of Dom Perignon presented at a Michelin star restaurant, the IPO celebration on the trading floor, corks flying, the Formula One driver on the winner's podium spraying a giant Jeroboam of champagne over the crowd, and, most overtly of all, nightclub bottle service. A bottle of Ace of Spades, costing thousands, arrives at a table carried by a procession, lit by blinding sparklers, announcing to the entire room exactly who has the status and cash to command that kind of spectacle. In these moments, the champagne isn't a beverage, it's a prop in a play about success. It ratifies a promotion, it celebrates a victory, or it simply confirms one's arrival into a certain stratum. The exorbitant cost acts as a gatekeeper. So, asking if a $300 champagne tastes 15 times better than a $20 bottle completely misses the point. That's like asking if a referee's whistle sounds better than a regular one. The sound is irrelevant. Its power comes from its function in the game. It signals a shift in play, and everyone on the field understands precisely what it means. Champagne is the whistle of the rich. This deep-rooted history is powerful, but even it isn't enough to stay on top forever. The story of power needs constant updates for a new generation, and perhaps no one in the modern era understood this better than Jay-Z. For years, the go-to champagne celebrated in hip-hop culture was Cristal, with its iconic clear bottle and gold label. But in 2006, a manager from the brand made comments that were widely seen as dismissive, even disdainful of the rap world's patronage. Feeling the profound disrespect, Jay-Z, a cultural and business titan, called for a boycott. But he didn't just stop drinking Cristal, he found a replacement. In his music video for Show Me What You Got, he theatrically waves away a bottle of Cristal and instead accepts a mysterious, opulent, solid gold bottle, Armand de Brignac, quickly nicknamed Ace of Spades. Almost overnight, Jay-Z single-handedly turned this sleepy, relatively unknown label into the new, definitive symbol of hip-hop royalty. He didn't just endorse it, he went on to buy the brand himself. The message was loud and clear. If the old symbols of power won't respect the new elite, we'll build our own. Then, in 2021, in the ultimate power move, the luxury giant LVMH, the very company that owns Dom Perignon, Moet and Chandon and Krug, bought a 50% stake in Armand de Brignac. It was a stunning validation. The brand, born from a culture the old guard had snubbed, was now partners with the absolute pinnacle of the establishment. Jay-Z proved that modern mythology, when crafted by a master, can be just as valuable as centuries of royal history. This brings into sharp focus the two parallel universes of sparkling wine. In one universe, you have Prosecco. Its production in 2024 hit a record 660 million bottles. It has surpassed champagne in sales volume in many markets, including the US, with the average bottle costing well under $20. This is the universe of affordable luxury, of weekend brunch mimosas and casual everyday fun. In the other universe, you have champagne. Shipments have recently dipped, falling to 271.4 million bottles in 2024, a drop of over 9% from the previous year. This is due to a complex mix of global inflation, political instability, and high existing stockpiles, not just simple price hikes. And yet, the prestige cuvées, the Dom Perignons, the Krugs, the Ace of Spades remain untouchable icons. The people buying these bottles are not cross-shopping with Prosecco, they are operating in a completely different system of value and meaning. They aren't just buying wine, they're buying a key to a club, and the price is the point of entry. So, why do the rich drink $300 champagne? Because it was never, ever just about the liquid in the bottle. It's a symbol, manufactured over centuries and meticulously maintained today. It started with the accidental endorsement of kings, which gave it a halo of untouchable power. It masterfully survived a revolution by proving its loyalty not to people, but to power itself, in whatever form it took. It then became the perfect social weapon, a Veblen good, where the outrageous price is the very source of its allure. And it stays relevant through masterful, relentless marketing, with new icons like Jay-Z building modern myths on its historic foundation. The soil, the grapes, the difficult method, that explains why it's a premium wine. But the history, the psychology, and the branding, that's what makes it a luxury good. The next time you see someone pay an astronomical price for a bottle of bubbly, you'll know the truth. They're not making a purchase, they're making a statement. They are buying their seat at the table. And the cost of admission is the entire point. If you found this breakdown of luxury interesting, give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of what we buy. Now we have to ask, what's the most you've ever spent on a single drink? And was it actually worth it? Let us know in the comments below.
Thanks for watching The Inner Margin. Like and subscribe.